What's up, guys? This is Jay from COI. So, if coronavirus, the economy collapsing, and wealth inequality being a huge issue wasn't enough to tangle with, I give you Planet of the Humans. This movie was released last week, and it is disturbing. At best, it's very disturbing, especially if you were someone like me who was really in on the processes that we took to prevent climate change. And, I guess I myself closed my eyes to some of the people who were getting involved. And this film really does expose how the whole going green agenda became very corporatist. And once it did, and as we would know, and we should have thought, and we should have been aware, once corporations get involved, of course, it's not for the betterment of people, for the betterment of the environment. No, it's for the bottom line. And it really, really hammers home just how destructive people like Mike Bloomberg and Richard Branson and even Al Gore. Al Gore probably the worst out of all of them. Uh, and yet, if and that I can get behind because I can be angry. But then this movie also goes into the ineffectual processes in which we try to get ourselves into like a carbon neutral situation. Things like solar panels, wind energy, basically they're not reliable. And it really goes into how they're not reliable, how there are solar panel, I guess solar farms is what they were called, and a lot of them don't even aren't even able to support the factories themselves that they're built on, let alone a portion of our country, a portion of a city. I think at best I saw one in the film. The people who made it, the people who installed it, were saying, yeah, this will prop up about 50 homes for a year. And if you looked, it was just nothing but solar panels. Like it really went to how ineffectual they are. And the big issue they kept talking about too is the batteries that we don't have the technology to really harness the power. I mean, we do. Like we can use batteries that will harness the energy they take throughout the day, and then at night they can expel that energy. The problem is these batteries are incredibly expensive, and they themselves are create a huge carbon footprint if we had to ramp up production and making a whole bunch of them. So they're really even our processes aren't working, and this film really does kind of kick you in the gut. But I do think it's important to watch it, especially if you're someone who is an activist, if you're someone who is concerned about climate change, and you know, um, it's very easy to get discouraged. It really is because however you feel about Michael Moore, for the most part, he has done amazing work in his films, and rarely ever has anyone found anything to be an outright lie that he has done. There might be, I don't know, he might choose not to include certain arguments, but I don't really see that as a problem. Many people, when trying to make a point, won't argue against themselves. I think I'm one of the rare people who does that, and I think it's just schizophrenia. No, I mean, it really is a interesting film. There are things though that I did feel myself like, okay, they're not talking about this, they're not talking about that. When they talked about major corporations getting involved in going green, and they talked about one of the big things that happened at this point, typically, and I think it was also to really ramp up renewable energy, is they included something called biomass. And essentially, these factories would burn biomass instead of burning coal. Well, biomass is basically just trees. They're just burning trees instead of burning coal. And they consider it to be okay because, well, it's renewable. Well, kind of, but not really. I mean, over a decade, you might get another tree again, but um, when they explored that, though, they also linked that into food shortages and stuff like that in the future because they said things like our fishing farms and our wildlife and things like that were being deeply impacted by this process of working with loggers and people like that. And they're right, it is without a doubt. But I think you could definitely make that correlation and say yes, working with um, loggers and we're in deforestation has definitely impacted wildlife and namely the fish, which was the argument here, because I think what they're pointing to is we're going to run out of fish, we're running out of food. And I've always held this opinion based on fact, and that is that we aren't running out of resources. We're wasting resources. And they didn't really talk about that. Um, you know, we throw away like 80 billion tons of food a year in this country. And I think that you know, they should have talked about that. And they should have definitely, included into that fact that that is also corporate driven. Wall Street pushes growth. That growth then forces companies to produce more. Produce, 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 whether we need it or not. And no matter if it's, you know, a, a fishing boat or, a shoe factory, it's just constant, constant, constant make, make, make. And we end up throwing away a lot of stuff. And they made it look like, well, due to this, we're running out of resources. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's not helping. I really, but there's so much more to put into place. Like there's other processes we can take, you know, and there's other processes we could put in place that would change things. We could also just, I don't know, stop throwing shit away. I know that sounds simple, but a lot of people live that kind of life. The other thing that really got big about this movie, and probably the main reason I saw it when I did, is that a lot of mainstream resources are wanting to pull this. They're saying that it's detrimental to climate change, that it's exposing and lying, rather, about a lot of people. And they're lying that it's just not true. They're saying, no, no, wind and solar really does make a huge impact and it has helped a lot. And yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I would be very surprised because it wasn't like Michael Moore was saying this. It wasn't like Jeff Gibbs was saying it. They were talking to experts in the fields, and these experts who were actually trying to sell the product and make it look good, they were the ones who were like, well, no, I guess that, one things was electric cars. They talked about electric cars. Well, what powers the electric car? Well, the building it's plugged into. Oh, okay, so is that powered by solar or what's that powered by? Oh, it's powered by coal, we think, from the electric grid. So you see, like, they were just asking the right questions that I think a lot of people know and a lot of people are aware of. But yeah, it's definitely worth it to watch. I would see it because, well, like what is common right now is if something offends people, it gets banned and canceled. So I would see it before it gets banned and you can't find it anywhere. I know just looking for pictures and things like that and looking into articles about this movie, I would say like 80% of what I saw was negative, and that it was lying and everything in here was false, and it, you know. again, I watched it without any sort of idea going into it, and I feel like a lot of what they said is correct. I think there's a lot to take in. I also think that they left out a few things, and I think they did it on purpose to make their film, really grab you. Like I said, we have a waste problem in this country. We have a waste problem in all countries, by the way, not just this country, but specifically for this conversation, we'll talk about our country. And yeah, we throw too much stuff away. That is a huge problem. We buy stuff to fill voids in our hearts and souls because we're not happy. And so we just buy crap we don't need. We need to fix that. We overeat, we overconsume. And we do it because the corporations tell us to, because they want to keep looking better and better and keep making more money. When you argue that aspect, that we are, you know, we are running to overproduce on a finite amount of resources, yeah, yeah, then this movie's 100% true. But again, we could fix these things. Now, the other thing is you're going to say, okay, fair enough, but what about the whole carbon neutral thing? Well, and this is where I'm conflicted because I think it's good to know. It's good to know that wind energy and solar energy is not as strong as what we think it is, and that there are plenty of opportunities for growth. I believe in our scientists, I believe in our engineers, that they can, in fact, work and they need to be funded into finding better processes. Now, I will also say this, and I think probably um, a very difficult conversation that we should have as far as energy is fission or fusion. Both of those, I think, are excellent, opportunities to produce clean, renewable energy. I know there's the whole nuclear component that makes a lot of people scared, but you see the outcome of like a Chernobyl or somewhere like that, and you're completely freaked out. But to know that there is a giant nuclear plant in Kansas that's been here for like 40 years, not a single problem, no issues at all, everything's fine, and it has been. We get tornadoes through here all the time, no problem. Um, I don't know. It's definitely an option, and I think it's something that should be talked about more, especially because we really do need to look and maybe do some independent studies on how useful solar and wind really is for us. And if it's not, then we need to drop it and move on to something else. But I know that that would not be a passable thing. Like there's the principle of once you put a lot of money and faith into an idea, you just hope that your money and your faith will get that idea over the finish line. And I know that there's people like Richard Branson who have dumped billions of dollars into this. They are not going to pull back. I mean, it's the lost cause fallacy, and that's of course what they're going to do is keep pushing it. Anyway, you guys should check out the film. I think it's really good, very interesting. But I will see you guys later. Take care.